Hey y'all, welcome back to Quality Matters. I'm Darcy.
I'm Kyle.
All right, we're going to jump right in, continuing our mini-series on 7 habits of highly effective people. We are talking about habit 3, putting first things first. I think we've done a few episodes on this, although we didn't label it as such
Correct.
necessarily. Stephen Covey kind of goes through generations of planners and how people have tried to plan their lives and tools they've used. So
Right.
he talks about the first generation used notes and checklists. Just kind of keep track of the things you need to do. I'm a checklist kind of girl. Kyle used to make fun of me saying I spend more time making the checklist than doing the things, but dadgum, it feels good to cross those things off. Then the next generation would have calendars and appointment books, which also came in very handy before the days of iPhone. You know, you have your desk calendar or, you know, your purse calendar or whatever you might have. Then he talks about how we're kind of currently in the third generation, although I don't know when this book was written to say currently in the third generation, about where people are really kind of scheduling themselves and filling every part of their day. And being very specific about the daily planning and goal setting and all these different kind of things. But then people are becoming turned off by time management because they're so busy and so scheduled.
This is true.
And the real problem is that they're not being able to work on relationships. So he mentions that they throw the baby out with the bathwater, which is funny. I really want to share that. We read where some of these old sayings come from. This really has nothing to do with quality, but we.
Darcy likes still stories.
You seem upset about that.
Well, you know, we only got so much memory left on the memory card, so if we go over, if we just disappear, folks, now you know why.
So way back when. They used to fill a big tub with hot water, and the man of the house got to take the bath first, then the other men or grown male children, and there was kind of a hierarchy so that the baby was last. And the water was so dirty that you ran the risk of throwing the baby out with the bath water because you didn't get the baby out of the dirty bath water. So that's where the throw the baby out with the bath water comes from. So now he talks about there's now an emerging fourth generation that recognizes time management as kind of a misnomer, that we don't really need to manage time, we need to manage ourselves. Because the third generation, I figure we kind of got overscheduled once we got smartphones.
These electronic devices. Yes.
Right. And then, oh man, it's so cool. I can just pop it in there. It'll remind me. So you put everything in there.
And I've probably around about 2006, 2007, when I first got a BlackBerry, oh my gosh, that's what I did. And my goal is exactly what he's talking about. My goal was to make sure that every single 30-minute block of my day had something in it.
And he still does that.
Not nearly as bad.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. So, but not even necessarily work related, but soccer games and somebody's birthday and a church event, like it all goes in there, which is helpful because then you don't forget about it.
But then when you need to change, it's very difficult. And what I found, the reason I finally quit doing it so badly was as soon as I needed to put something new in there, it would take so long to rearrange my schedule that I would rather just tell them no. I would rather just not do it.
Well, and for me, and I think this is also kind of a millennial thing, although I'm technically not a millennial, I'm too old.
Old geezer.
Putting it on my calendar feels just like a lot of work. And I don't ever, like if I hear about something, I say, oh, that sounds fun. But then I almost purposefully don't put it on my calendar because I'm also one of those people like, oh, going out sounds like fun, but then I have to put on clothes and get out of my pajamas. So, if I don't put it on my calendar, then it doesn't happen,
That's
kind of a
good.
thing. So he says that, the overscheduling for the third generation kind of took away spontaneity, and it didn't really serve relationships or
Yeah.
forming relationships, and it didn't serve a quality of life.
Well, and he passed away in 2012. So imagine if he was here today to see all the social media stuff, which I'm horribly guilty of. 'Cause
Right.
I'll use it as the excuse of, well, I've got to do marketing, right? And so, and now we fill up so much of our time with just this pointless stuff.
Scrolling.
But it feels productive.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's what hooks you, is it feels productive. Oh, that's an interesting article that I need to read. I need to know about this. You were fine with that at 10 minutes ago. Stop.
Right.
In any case, that's my own personal rant about myself.
Well, what I feel like when he says, it doesn't serve relationships, spontaneity, or quality of life, my personal feel is that, we feel like those calendars are for obligations. So work things, church things, kids' activities, places you feel like you have to be.
Right.
Friendships are not obligations.
Correct.
They shouldn't be obligations.
Correct.
So you don't schedule that time.
That's true.
You think about kids who don't have phones, although I know that's a rare thing these days. Right. Our 8-year-old, 9-year-old, he's 9. I'm losing track of my kids' ages. He's 9. He doesn't call a friend because he doesn't have phone, and I assume most of them. He goes to their house in the neighborhood and says, knock, 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 can I play?
Yep.
He doesn't schedule a date. It's a little bit harder with our junior high kiddo because they all have phones and they're all trying to navigate this world where they try to make plans without involving the parents, but parents have to be involved. But you think about kids pre-phone days, it wasn't a scheduled thing. You just went and did it.
Yeah.
And, even when, as an adult, you should just be able to go over to your friend's house and say, hey, how you doing? I want to spend some time with you. But think about if somebody did that. Like, it just seems so absurd.
Yeah. But not long ago, that was the norm. Well, even with sales stuff, if I've been talking to someone, or sales or consultation or whatever it is, whatever I'm working with someone on, I feel almost guilty, and sometimes I feel outright guilty, like I'm taking their time, if I just call them up. Be like, hey, we're working on this project. I got the results you're looking for ready. Let's go over it. I feel as though I have to email them to schedule that time on my calendar first.
I always feel like I might be interrupting them or bothering them.
Right. And what I need to tell myself is, if they're busy, they won't answer.
Exactly. That's what, and I think about a very particular conversation. We have these friends at our church, a couple that has helped us with our kids for years and years. They babysat, and I always tend to text her, and I can't remember how the conversation came up, but I remember saying to her, well, I just hate to call you because I feel like you might be busy and I'll interrupt you. And she said, well, if I'm busy, I won't answer.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh.
So paradigm shift there, huh?
Well, but then as a woman, or maybe it's just me, you read so much into it when they don't answer. Well, what if they're mad at me and they don't want to talk to me? What if they know I'm calling for babysitting and they don't want to answer? It's all these, you read so much. It's just such a weird world we live in when it comes to serving relationships and creating, and whether it be personal or a business relationship.
And it causes lots of problems. I mean, just think about, the problems just you and I have had with scheduling for our to-do list and activities that need to be done, right? So, we've got logs of service tickets and little to-do lists for things that need to be done. It's become such a chore to try to get it done. And then when you have to try to work with other folks, and if you're putting those same barriers and difficulties that you experience with it yourselves, and you're imposing them on everyone else, my gosh, we wind up spending so much more effort and energy and emotion over just a simple phone call.
Yeah, we just need to go back to the easier times where you just picked up the phone and called.
Yeah, I mean, it's
because there was nothing else to do.
Yeah. I mean, but it's just gotten ridiculous these days. But then the question is okay, well, if we have a problem, what are the behaviors that need to be changed to solve it? And I think that's something that we should all ask. And this is something that we're having to ask ourselves right now. And we've gone through several different systems ourselves trying to get this figured out. So it's not like we're coming in here trying to say, hey, we're the experts and know everything. Like, we struggle with this on a truly daily basis for our business. It's very difficult to do. And, you know, it's made more difficult by the plethora of tools available to do it with. So there's so many scheduling apps, there's so many to-do list apps, and you know, and this is something where I kind of go back and forth between, well, do I just want to keep my to-do list on a sheet of paper, or do I want to put electronics so I can share it with others? And if I share it with others, then they have to be on board with the same way I'm working.
And then, you know, once Kyle started the business and then brought me on, we had a shared calendar through Outlook, which frustrated me because I liked my regular calendar on my iPhone, and every time I set something up in Outlook, I'm like, well, is this a meeting or is it an appointment? It's not really either. It's an event, and that's not an option. So then I'm mad that I'm using Outlook. And, you know, when I put our personal stuff on there, I have to be careful how I word it because customers might, you know, sometimes he shares his calendar and customers might see it. So there's just so many things that go into a calendar. But to go back to, you know, how it doesn't serve relationships because it's an calendars, I feel like, are for obligations. And so then we don't put friendships or, you know, even sales relationships on the calendar because it shouldn't be an obligation. It should just be something that you do. And at some point last year, I was kind of struggling with this because I was just like, I feel like I don't have any friends. And so there was one person in particular that I wanted to get to know better. So I just started texting her. I didn't pick up the phone and call her. I just started texting her and said, hey, you want to go to lunch? Oh, yeah, that sounds great. So now about once a month, we go to lunch. And it's usually me texting her because she's always busy. She does have a lot going on, and I understand that. That's fine. But, you know, it's just like you just got to put your toe in the water and do it.
Well, I was reading something just last night about sales, and I'm not saying we can go back to the 1950s and 60s styles of selling where, you know, you show up in your best suit and, you know, then you go out and, you know, you talk sales over, you know, T-bone steak and over dinner and whatnot, right? But the idea was that it was personal relationships.
You're creating a relationship.
Right? And now it's so far from it. And
because there's so many salespeople calling everyone for so many different things.
And so whether it's sales or the work that you're engaged in on a daily basis, even with your people at work, how many times do we send an email with a list of things that need to get done on it when maybe we should have just sat down with the guys for 15 minutes in the morning and talk with them about what needs to be done? Now, I know there are people listening that are going to say, well, we've had so many meetings that should have been an email.
I was about to say that's a pretty busy meme on Facebook. Like, oh, yet another meeting that could have been an email.
But the point there is, if you're going to meet in person, it is not simply to exchange information. If you're going to meet in person, you're meeting in person for a relationship type purpose. So yes, maybe that meeting could have been an email. What else could that meeting have been? The email was a missed opportunity to build a rapport with the people and to get them on board with whatever initiative you're sending out at them.
Well, and it should be something where your leadership and management meets regularly with their employees to cultivate those relationships. You know, I go back to teaching, and anytime you got an email from the principal that said, please come by my office during your block time, well, then you're like, you're just like the kids, you know? You're just like the kids. Why am I going to the office? Because you were only going because something happened that she needed to speak to you about. And same thing for the kids. Like, the only time they go to the principal's office, like, let's make it a place that's not a bad thing to do.
Yeah, no, I agree. I saw the Simon Sinek video recently. And he was talking about the two different ways you could approach someone. So say their number's been down for a quarter. You could, you know, call them into your office and say, your number's been down for a quarter. You need to get this fixed. And you send them on their way. He's like, well, how motivated are they going to be to get that done? He said, on the other hand, you can pull them into the office and say, man, number's been down for a quarter. What's going on?
Is everything okay? Yeah.
Is everything okay at home? Like, what's going on? He said, then you'll have a 5-minute conversation about that. Now imagine how motivated he is when he leaves your office.
Yeah.
It's huge.
People want to know that you care.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, going back to the classroom, I knew my students weren't going to show me their full potential unless they felt cared for and respected and they trusted me.
True. And that trust, that was a huge piece when I first got into health and safety. As I've talked about several times before, I was just the computer geek. That's it. And so how am I supposed to get these, these guys on board with me? Well, one of the ways that I did it is they had lunch every day. And I mean, a lot of these guys are from all over South America, and oh my gosh, the food they would bring in. Oh, it's wonderful. Their wives they could cook.
Okay, just so y'all know, I am not insulted by this. I'm a super picky eater, plain cheeseburger. So when it comes to cooking, it's not my thing. And even if I do cook, it's not awesome food like he likes.
It's stuff that I never got on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But in any case, so these guys would bring it in, and they didn't bring it for the sake of their lunch. They set up a buffet. Oh, it was awesome. In any case, so I would come in and I'd eat lunch with them. And when I'd come in and eat lunch, I wasn't going to talk shop, wasn't going to talk about work done. I just wanted to talk to them about what was going on in their lives. And this is what I did to build that trust and build that rapport.
Well, and this may seem silly, but they would also have I don't want to say weird foods, it's normal foods for them, but foods that we normally wouldn't eat. And he would try it. Yeah. Whatever they had, he would try. And they would always be like, "You're not going to eat." He was like, yeah, I will.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
And the hottest of the hot sauces, he would eat it all.
I finally drew the line at menudo. We'll just leave it there.
I don't even know what that is.
Good.
Okay, well, he's going to have to tell me off camera what that is.
So, but, it was. They were just totally shocked that, and they had all sorts of different names for me, but, this geeky white guy would try all this stuff. But it built trust and it built a rapport. And so after really just about 2 weeks of doing that, I didn't even come every day because I didn't want it to seem like I was trying to abuse it. But I was in there 2 or 3 days a week. And it didn't take long, and all of a sudden, I'm accepted. And they would listen to me when I go into the shop next time, and that they were glad to see me. You have to take the time to treat people like people, not buckets of information.
Yeah, and I'm very guilty of that. I'm often like, let's just get the job done. I don't want to chit chat. Let's just move on to the next thing. So if you do keep a calendar and a schedule, which I don't know anybody that doesn't, I would suggest go ahead and scheduling those times, but don't make it feel like an obligation. True. You have to separate that. Because if you're anything like me, I'm not going to do it if it's not on the calendar. But if it's on the calendar, it feels like an obligation. So you've got to have a paradigm shift, change the mindset, and start cultivating those relationships, because that's what he talks about in the third generation. We've overscheduled ourselves. We've become too busy, and we just don't have time for relationships anymore.
Amen.
All right. Thanks for listening, y'all. Okay, Jesse has called me and left me a voice.
In today's global economy, quality matters. Benjamin Franklin once quipped, "The bitterness of poor quality remains long after the sweetness of low price is forgotten." Quality Matters is here to talk about all things quality. So whether you're looking to improve your business, getting ready for an audit, or dealing with failed inspections, tune in, check us out, then get back to doing work that matters.